Well, our little purple lady's up, and she picked up the victory here off a fairly cheap card, like a 20-something. Everybody else played campaign strategy or whatever. Now she doesn't have a choice. She has to push it forward into this purple region with the robot. No special ability in hand to make that change. So sometimes you could be forced into positions. Now remember, once they get cornered down here, there's going to be more of a problem, which is that whoever puts the lowest vote is going to have to pay a penalty in popularity. And that could be multiple people, just like when you're in a bad neighborhood. This game is very hard to get away from. Usually I walk away from a game in the midst of it several times. It's not to say it's particularly fun. It's just like some of the lighter card games and stuff that I've played. There's no good stopping point. I can kind of mark what's happening, but it doesn't feel like one I can walk away from, which might be kind of cool. It might taint my vision towards, it's fast-paced and everything, which it certainly would be. So we're in an interesting situation. After backing out of this corner, which yellow won and has taken pretty much the spaceport area. Yeah, they've definitely got it. A couple of people took penalties on it, blue and I think purple. But then we had a movement through here. Yellow got another robot one, which didn't really help them. Moved into here at their choice. And the Spin Doctor was one over here and has been played. So everybody's looking for the lowest. They all know they're looking for that, but it kind of shakes things up, and we'll see what happens because it's kind of cute, I think. Played a 9. That's a pretty low card. He was actually looking at doing laying some groundwork. Campaign planning. He's out of the race for this one. 19. That's just not low enough. That was kind of his only card to play as far as he saw. But what he didn't realize, there's a 2. There's a 2. Okay, well, 2 2s means it's not 1 at all. Campaign planning, only a single one. This goes away, and the Reeve bot Ralph AI Pastor shows up. Whenever a purple space gets marked by this guy, he gets an extra popularity for it. That makes them more valuable for him. We get a new endorser up, who in this case is CBS News. Before players choose cards each turn, you can declare that each colored campaign promise uses its lower value. If you do, you can't do a campaign planning. That's cute. There were no other bonuses for this, except he gets his card. And who won? No one won, so yellow's going to get the choice to move. So let me just give him his card. Everybody else ditches their card. And we see sort of that cosmic encounter type effect. Well, yellow's down to nothing but a campaign planning card. You don't have a lot of options, only one. So that's where it's going. Kind of like the end game in Mr. President, the old 3M game. There's a lot of blundering that goes on in this, i.e. you're the low vote in slightly different mechanism, and you get stuck in one of these dead-end spaces. Right now, blue gets to pick what they want. Now, everything's pretty much connected, with the exception of this one yellow space. Of course, blue could drop someone in the middle of that, and then we could end up in another position where one end or the other is going to be weakened. Now, let me look at his cards. Lopez, you mark the most spaces in the neighborhood without marking its neighborhood center. That's kind of cool, but... And he likes slums. And doesn't have a great deal of anything else. He kind of wants to go with the slums. This one could get him second place, which is worth 2. Or he could try to run for first place over here in Robo Alley. He's going to go to try to mark Robo Alley up. Let's see what he can do. We'll see where that goes. Okay, as we can see, the endgame has really hurt people's popularity. On this last election, some people didn't have cards to play. This guy ended up winning the election. Green goes up to 2. And now it's time to tally the votes. Okay, well, let's do it one neighborhood at a time. Nobody took a penalty because the rocket doesn't have to move. We do have to handle the card draws, though, because they can affect the... I gotta reshuffle this. Does he really care? He doesn't care, so I'm not going to worry about his card. I don't want to reshuffle for something that doesn't matter. So let's start looking at what the votes are. And let's start, I don't know, from where we came to. So yellow and green both have 2 guys, but green has the capital, so that gives him the lead. He picks up 6 popularity from that, puts him up to an 8. Yellow gets second place for 4, puts him up to an 8. Okay. How about up here? Up here, yellow and purple are tied with 2 each. Neither one has the capital. They each get 4. Okay. Here, this kind of tangerine or whatever wins it with 5. And yellow gets 3 for his 1 success. That's pretty cool. Over here, purple, blue, and tangerine all have 2, but purple has the capital. She gets 3, and they each actually get 1. They split that, but you round up. Alright. Over here, purple has 4. That gives it to her hands down. You're up to 16. Blue and green split it, and they each get 1. And now finally, in that early area, yellow's got 3. That's worth 4 votes. It looks like he's winning. And blue, green, and weird each get 1. That's where we are. But there's more. Alright, well, let's look at blue and see if he made his bonus. Winning an area without marking its neighborhood center. Did blue win any areas? Doesn't look like it. So he didn't make his robot bonus. Okay. Let's look. Who's next? Tangerine. He's got a couple of them. 4, 5, or 6 campaign cards. Or 0 or 1 campaign promise. He's got 1. That's worth a popularity for him. Not enough to make a big difference. Purple? How about green next? 4, 5, or 6 campaign promises? No. Alright. And finally, let's see if purple has a shot. 3 points to make up. 2 cards the same type, 1 or more green campaign promises is worth 2 points each. That's enough to put her over, but she didn't manage to draw one. And then yellow, who was in the lead, marked Galaxy Bank or the Broadcasting. Galaxy Bank, this came after these were gone. He didn't get either. And the other one, 1 or more purple cards. He does not have that either. So that's our final positioning. I think clearly one could play with a little bit more strategy than I tend to in terms of like just, you know, at the very least one could pay attention to what's going on better than I can in a solo game. I'll come back with a review. Okay. So, I don't see doing a whole review session on this. Just finished up playing Rocketville, which you've been watching if you've gotten to this point. My initial impressions are actually pretty much on target here. It's a fun game, I think. Even solo, it was kind of enjoyable. I wouldn't choose to play this solo again, but it's certainly something I would bring out in that sort of light after the real games, you know, and you're at 2 in the morning and saying, oh, what can we do? Yeah, it's, and that's where I see most Euros, to tell you the truth, which is a problem because they do require more thought than that, at least some of the more complex ones. That wasn't pleasant. But, you know, this is sort of in the right spot for that kind of game. And I would prefer playing something kind of a little lighter than something where I have to calculate and think and all this other stuff that I would rather do with something that's got a heavy theme to it. Component-wise, it's pretty decent, actually. The board's a little crappy, but it pooches, it doesn't lay flat. I'm sure something could be done. Counters and the little pieces of candy are okay. The cards shuffle nicely, decently made. This rocket is awesome. It's got some heft to it. But the thing that impressed me the most was the rules. For a light game, this does a very good job. I mean, there's almost nothing to the game, but it doesn't really waste any space. It's clear. Yes, there's graphics and everything, but they're not too distracting. It's a nice pale color. Overall, I'd say this is, you know, I'm not going to rate it above a 6. I'm not going to rate it below a 6. And it's slightly below that on the Geek, probably because most people who look at it either want something with a little bit more strategy to it. I'm not saying that there isn't any. There certainly is, but it's all this kind of bluffing and card play stuff. There's nothing you can build up. It's just, is he holding that card? Your only planning is really something kind of hidden from the other players for the most part. So that's probably not too enjoyable to most people. For me, it's perfectly fine because I actually like something at that level a lot better than something where there's all these decisions to weigh continuously. I feel like you can almost play this randomly, which I pretty much do. And, you know, that's how I play most games. So I like something where there's a level of strategy in it, where there's a level of making this decision. And for you wargamers who are going to complain about strategy, man, there's two different layers here. A game has strategy to it without having to be a strategic game, right? Strategic is a certain type, a certain scale and scope for a war game. Or perhaps for other things, for a political simulation, strategic versus tactical could make sense. But I'm not using it in that terms. I'm using it in the terms of I've got a strategy, man. Anyway, I just felt like babbling about something there because there's not a lot to say about the game. It really, you know, I understand why it's got a low rating. I think it's gotten docked a little bit more than it deserves, but probably because the people who picked it up thought they were getting something that they weren't, and I can fully understand that. I don't know if there's anything on the box or elsewhere that would consider. See, here's the problem. I mean, it says a fast-paced game of luck and strategy, but, you know, the back of boxes on things other than war games is often really, really tough to judge. And even with war games, it's hard, unless, like, you know, the thing weighs 100 pounds and says 9 maps, 2 dice, 300 pages of rolls. Yeah, you know, it's tough to judge what you're going to get. And when you're looking at one of these, if you're your common geek, you know, denizen, you're looking at Euros, and you pick this up and you say, oh crap, this is, you know, I don't know what it is. It's a lot lighter than I expected. There's not a lot of, there's too much luck and not a lot of really cleverness in it. Well, you know, some of us still like games like this where you draw a hand of cards, make your decisions based on it, and you don't have to think too much. You're just kind of playing it. It's not that it's pure luck. There's certainly some level of, yeah, I want to hold this card for a better place or whatever that might actually come into play if I was playing it opposed. It's not going to happen solitaire, because solitaire I'm just going to make decisions, and when I feel kind of like, ah, geez, should I do this or that, I'll roll a die, and so it comes down to randomness. Alright, up it goes. If YouTube will take things, they've doing site maintenance, and I've screwed up my loads recently.